Hi everyone, welcome to today's broadcast. This webinar is being brought to you by the Clean Energy States Alliance, and today we are featuring two of the winning programs from our 2014 State Leadership in Clean Energy Awards. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a quick housekeeping slide. All of our participants today will be in listen-only mode throughout the broadcast, so we will not be able to hear you. You can connect to the audio portion of the webinar using your computer speakers or a headset, or you can listen in via telephone. We do suggest that you listen in via your computer to avoid telephone charges, but if you are listening to us today by phone, we ask that you please enter the audio PIN into your telephone keypad. This just allows us to keep track of you throughout the broadcast. And today, very important, we're encouraging all of our webinar participants to please type your questions into the question box on your webinar console throughout the broadcast. So as you think of your questions, please type them in. We will queue up all of your questions and answer them as time allows at the end of our presentations today. And finally, this webinar is being recorded. You will find a recording of this webinar posted on our website at cesa.org/webinars, and all of our previous webinars are archived there as well. And with that, I would like to pass this over to Todd Olinsky-Paul. Todd is our project director here at CESA, and he will be talking more about our webinar today and our guest speakers. Todd, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. This is Todd Olinsky-Paul from Clean Energy States Alliance. Welcome to the webinar. You can go ahead and advance the next slide, please. This is one of our webinars focusing on our SLICE award-winning programs. So I will do a brief intro of SLICE, but first I will do a brief intro of CESA in case anybody is unaware. We are a national nonprofit organization. We work on clean energy policy programs, technology, financing, etc. And primarily we work with state clean energy funds and administrators and managers of those funds. And we also do some work, of course, with a little bit with federal agencies and other nonprofits. Next slide, please. So today we're going to focus on two of the award-winning programs. We do this every couple of years, the SLICE Awards, and basically it recognizes leadership in clean energy policy and programs at the state level. There is a URL on the screen that you can use to get to a website, our website, and specifically the page that has all the 2014 SLICE award-winning programs listed, and I believe we have case studies written on those programs if you'd like to read up on them. Next slide, please. And I think we'll have that URL again at the end of the presentation. So for today, we are focusing on two programs, one from NYSERDA in New York and the other from DEEP in Connecticut. And we have three guest speakers who I will introduce now, all three of them, and then we will begin with the NYSERDA program, and then we'll hear from the folks at Connecticut DEEP. So the representative from NYSERDA today is Dr. Dana Levy. He is the Program Manager for Manufacturing Technology Development and On-Site Power Applications. And that includes NYSERDA's CHP Acceleration Program, which is the award-winning program that we're going to be focusing on today. It was preceded by something called the CHP Demonstration Program, and both of those supported projects that break down barriers and serve as role model examples by amassing a vast portfolio of CHP projects. And this is a strategy that's allowed them to demonstrate trailblazing equipment, economically important applications, and novel business models that can benefit a variety of users. Prior to joining NYSERDA in 1999, Dana held positions in private industry and the federal government. He has a doctorate and an MS in environmental engineering from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute and a BS in chemical engineering from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, and he's a licensed professional engineer. He's also the recipient of the US CHPA, which is the US CHP Association, and the NESHP, which is the Northeast CHP Initiative, CHP Champion Awards, and he is a founding member of the NHP Executive Committee. Following Dr. Levy, we will have two folks from Connecticut DEEP, Tracy Babbage and Veronica Sizerkowski. Tracy is the Bureau Chief of the recently formed Bureau of Energy and Technology Policy at DEEP, and that Bureau is responsible for formulating the state's energy, climate change, and transportation strategies. The Bureau has primary responsibility for implementation of a number of initiatives under the state's energy legislation, which was passed in 2011, including the development of the 2012 Integrated Resources Plan, the Comprehensive Energy Strategy, and the Conservation and Load Management Plan, and several procurements for large-scale renewable energy projects. Veronica is also at Connecticut DEP at the Bureau of Energy and Technology Policy. She's the program coordinator for the state's Microgrids program. Previously, she worked as a utilities examiner in the Department of Public Utility Control, and she graduated from the University of Connecticut with a bachelor's degree in accounting. So we're going to start off with Dana. Before I hand this over to him to talk about the CHP program in New York, I'm going to remind everyone, please don't wait until the end to type your questions in. If a question or a comment occurs to you, please type it into the question box you'll see on the panel as it occurs to you, and that gives me a little time to sort through these questions and comments, and so that we can be ready to answer as many as we can after the presentations are over. Also, I just wanted to remind everyone that we are recording this, and it will be available following the webcast for anyone to review. So with that, I think we go to the next. Do we have another slide? Yes. Okay. Very good. So with that, I will hand this over to Dana Levy from NYSERDA.
Thank you very much, Todd. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you today. I'd like to start by expressing my appreciation to the Clean Energy States Alliance for the recognition award for this program, as well as the opportunity to speak on today's webinar. Our agenda for today, for those that might not be familiar with CHP, I'll do a very brief introduction about why is CHP good, but then I'll go on to spend more time talking about the sequence of NYSERDA's program evolution, how we have come to design the program that we have now. Item number 3, the current program, we call it the catalog program. Officially, it's called the CHP Acceleration and Aggregation Program, and as I describe the current program, you'll understand why we have nicknamed it the catalog program. And finally, I'll finish with some discussion of the features of the current program. So, jumping right in, what is CHP? Combined Heat and Power, sometimes also called cogeneration. It's the simultaneous generation of heat and electricity from a single fuel source. Fuel goes in, the machinery does its thing, it produces both electricity and power. CHP is good because it's more efficient than the status quo. The status quo shown here, a central power plant that produces electricity and sends it over the grid, and a boiler at your building making heat, is less efficient than the CHP scenario, where you have a device in your building that's making electricity and you're scavenging the byproduct heat that comes off of that device, and you're able to throttle back the fuel you have to put into your boiler or furnace to make heat. And so you're using less fuel, and that fuel savings turns into financial savings and emission reductions. So CHP can really be thought of as a fancy boiler. You use it to make some of your heat, and it makes some electricity as a byproduct. So you can reduce how much electricity you need to purchase from the grid on an everyday basis, and you're recycling that heat, which makes it extra efficient. During a grid outage, this device can produce electricity on site to help you keep some circuits going. It provides that resiliency factor. There are a number of sectors that are well suited as candidates for CHP. Moving on now to the sequence of NYSERDA's program evolution, I'd like to highlight this timeline. Starting in about the year 2000, NYSERDA launched our CHP demonstration program. The goal was diversity. We wanted to amass a broad portfolio of trailblazing examples so that customers could now look through this set of examples, find a sample that looks like them, and use it as a role model to design and justify their CHP system. About the year 2006, we had built up a portfolio of 50 or so projects, and we started to realize that there were some good projects that were worth repeating. However, they would not give us new additional learning activities, and so they didn't really fit within the CHP demonstration program, but we created the CHP performance program to continue to support those particular projects. In 2012, we sunsetted the CHP demonstration program, and we did a 180-degree turn. We went from seeking diversity now to seeking sameness. We wanted cookie-cutter replications of well-proven designs that many customers could now follow. And as shown in the CHP demonstration program timeline box, as we were getting ready to wind down the CHP demonstration program in 2010 and 2011, we started to explore modular, prepackaged, pre-engineered CHP systems and found that there were a number of these available on the marketplace, and that is the basis around which we built the CHP catalog program. So over a decade or so, the strategy of diversity, we have sizes ranging from small to large across a variety of sectors using all different types of fuels, all different types of prime movers, 181 projects. So we certainly have built a diverse portfolio from which we've learned. One of the things that we discovered is, and this is really in their own words, the CHP vendors were marketing their systems as being packaged, modular, standardized, all-in-one, within the box, plug and play. They were showing the marketplace that their product should be viewed as an appliance. And so NYSERDA, we jumped on the bandwagon with this notion, and the CHP catalog program, which is the subject of the recognition award from CESA, treats CHP systems as appliances and encourages customers to shop that way. So we observe purchasing habits in the marketplace. Certainly, simplicity is important in some respects, and customization is important in other respects. And we found that for small to medium-sized systems, and NYSERDA, we chose to bound that as 50 kilowatts to 1.3 megawatts, which is an arbitrarily chosen band, but we felt that it was a sweet spot to focus on so that we could put our efforts into starting up this program design with a focus where we could make a significant difference. For those that are program administrators, you may be familiar with the two primary mechanisms for running a program: competitions and standard offers. We used the competition format for a decade through the CHP demonstration program to specifically pick and choose projects that would purposefully help us build out this diverse portfolio. And now we have transitioned to a standard offer approach. And there are three mechanisms for standard offers. The simplest, pre-qualified measures, a list of standard items that can get a rebate, all the way up to the most complex performance-based payments for as measured and verified performance systems. We're trying to treat a complex technology such as CHP through the simplified standard measure basic list of items type approach. So to do this, we've created a catalog. It's got pre-qualified measures. Each has been assigned a specific rebate, and we are encouraging customers to shop out of this catalog. We've created this set of sizing guidelines that create a safe harbor, and projects that stay within the safe harbor go to the head of the class, get a streamlined review by NYSERDA. However, we also make it possible for projects that don't fit within the streamlined approach to also participate in the program. The streamlining is really geared towards the lowest common denominator type project. So our catalog, all of the items are clean and efficient. They meet all of these attributes. There's a bumper-to-bumper warranty. They all have standalone capability to run during a grid outage. And the catalog has been updated 3 times so far since its launch, just recently updated in September. And we'll be updating it again very soon. As you can see, the different vendors, there is quite a number of vendors that offer systems in the 50 to 100 kW, 100 to 200 kW, 200 to 300 kW range. There's a lot for a customer to choose from, and we encourage customers to do a lot of comparison shopping. This is a catalog cut sheet. So this is one particular vendor's product. You can see circled in red is the product ID number. We want it to really look like buying a standard item out of a catalog. Circled in blue, you can see the incentives that NYSERDA has assigned as rebates. So a customer buying that particular item knows exactly what they're getting, and they know the exact rebate that's being offered by NYSERDA. Here's a sample of projects that have received these rebates from NYSERDA. We've got 39 applications that have been received to date, 19 of which already have equipment on site. There's been 0 attrition from the program so far. We think that this is a really good sign. Some of the other things that we've seen, this approach is transformational. We're seeing much compressed timelines, quicker getting to yes, quicker for the integration with the building, and quicker for the actual install. To help customers with this comparison shopping, we've held a series of expos. This provides an opportunity for the customer in one fell swoop to meet the whole gamut of vendors and do some comparison shopping. We're also encouraging customers to install what we consider to be this N+1 configuration, where if it's suitable for them to put in a 600 kW system, we really encourage them to put in 3 300 kW prime movers. So really it's a 900 kW system, but they dispatch only 600 kW at any given time. That will make the equipment last longer. If one system is, one prime mover is down for maintenance, they still have 600 kW available to dispatch on site, and during a grid outage, they can actually run 900 kW that provides exceptional value for them. We are rewarding them by paying them as though they're installing a 900 kW system, and this delta of extra money really does help them justify putting in the extra generator that most of the time sits idle. So we've shown that there can be this win-win-win-win-win series of outcomes, and customers are really responding to this very well. The program has proven that this format gets good projects, accelerates timelines, drives down soft costs, such as customer acquisition. We thank CESA for the recognition of this program. We have transformed the way that deals are occurring in the marketplace. There's now a healthy comparison shopping that is happening. We're seeing long-term partnerships as opposed to a focus really just on sales. And with that, I thank you for your attention. I'd like to extend to any other states that are out there that are thinking about a CHP program. We would like to work with you to leverage the work that NYSERDA has done so far to nationalize this list of pre-approved items so that you can point to it and run your program based on it as well. And thank you.
And thank you, Dana, very much. We do have some questions, but we're going to go ahead and go through the second presentation before we start to address those. But for those who have sent questions in, don't worry, we will get to those after the second presentation. One thing before we go on, Dana, we try to group these SLICE programs on webinars in some way that makes sense. And in this case, I think we sort of thought, well, microgrids and CHP are both technologies that can provide resilient power benefits. Can you, before we go on to the next presentation, that was something that didn't really kind of come up during your PowerPoint. Is there anything that is that part of the program? In other words, is there any preference or any recognition given to the resilience aspect of the technology?
Great question. So every one of the 141 solutions that are in the catalog today, and so there are 13 approved vendors with 141 different package systems ranging from small to medium to larger. Some are engine-based, some are microturbine-based, etc. Some produce hot water, some produce hot and chilled water, some produce steam. Every one of those 141 solutions is based on a prime mover that can and will run during a grid outage. So when the system is installed, we require them to do a commissioning effort that actually shows the system running in parallel with the grid going away, the system running during the grid outage, the grid coming back, the system reconnecting to the grid. So every one of these systems brings that resiliency factor by being able to run during a grid outage. These systems could be installed to serve a single building, or they could be installed to serve multiple buildings in the format of a microgrid. And I personally believe that a CHP system is the heart of a microgrid. There are other features that can be added to a microgrid. You can add PV, you can add batteries. These are all adjunct components, in my opinion, that extend the capability of the microgrid. But a microgrid that has only PV or only PV and batteries may run during the first day of the grid outage when the sun is shining and the batteries are fully charged. Maybe the microgrid will run during the first night of the grid outage off of those batteries, and then the sun comes out on the day number 2 and the PV can continue to support the microgrid. But when night number 2 rolls around, a system that is just PV and batteries is going to have a very difficult time being a microgrid that provides value to the customers. So we see CHP as being really the heart of a microgrid, and these other components can help to extend additional value. NYSERDA has a specific microgrid program. The New York Prize program is helping communities to evaluate, are they candidates for a microgrid, what is the appropriate design for them, and then NYSERDA's other programs can help them procure the components that are used to build the microgrid.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think we should go ahead and introduce our second presenters, Veronica and Tracy. I have a comment here from somebody that says lost audio. Are we still, can you still hear what I'm saying?
I can hear you, Todd. Sorry
okay.
for the audio.
So we apologize if somebody has lost audio. It seems that we're still okay for the most part, so we're going to continue. Let's turn it over to Tracy and Veronica from Connecticut.
Okay, thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep, you sound good.
Okay, great. So first of all, I'd like to thank CESA for recognizing Connecticut's program as part of the SLICE Awards. That was terrific for us, and we're really proud of that. I'd also like to thank our entire team here in Connecticut, really starting with Veronica, who's going to pick up after me. It's been a fantastic group that's working on Connecticut's microgrid program. And I think in part it's the combination of staff that's really committed to the program, working in partnership with our utilities and technical support that has really made the program a success. In terms of our format for today, we can figure out how to advance the slides.
Just click click on your screen 1 or 2 times.
Okay. I'm the Bureau Chief here for the Bureau of Energy and Technology Policy, and then I'll be turning it over to Veronica, who's really has been coordinating the microgrid program, to talk a little bit more in detail. We're going to start by giving you a little background on where we're coming from, what the vision has been for the microgrid program in Connecticut, talk a little bit about the purpose of the program, our overall energy policy, and then we're going to go through some details on the rounds that we've gone through. We've gone through 2 rounds, so we'll talk about the round 1 award winners, talk about round 2, the award winners from round 2. We've also conducted a survey and talked a little bit about that, what we're thinking about in terms of future rounds and municipal assistance, as well as where you can find additional program information. In terms of Connecticut's microgrid program, really the impetus for the whole thing has been the severe storms that have hit the Northeast. It really, as a result of the severe weather that we've had in terms of the snowstorms in 2010, both Tropical Storm Irene and the October snowstorm, Superstorm Sandy, and the blizzard of 2013, it really got us thinking about resiliency and how we can build resilient communities and the role that clean energy can play as part of that effort. And it really, as a result of those storms where we had hundreds of thousands of people without power for really long periods of time, in some cases in excess of 10 days, it really forced us to take a hard look at how we can better prepare ourselves for that. And it's something that began with the leadership from our governor, who was very interested in moving us forward to look at how we can build more resilient communities. In terms of our vision for microgrids in Connecticut, we have been looking at how microgrids can provide critical services to residents, really generating electricity 24/7 with a focus on clean power. We've focused on natural gas turbines with combined heat and power, fuel cells, and solar panels. A big specific aspect of the microgrid is the ability to engineer it to island from the grid when the larger grid is de-energized. And how to do that has been technically challenging, a challenging part of the program. How to build these cost effectively has been another mantra. We've always looked at how we can make sure our investments are cost effective. And how to contribute to public good by islanding critical facilities in communities. So really the focus has been on the critical facilities and connecting more than one critical facility to reliable distributed generation resources. The purpose of the program has been to solicit proposals to bid microgrids to support critical facilities during times of electricity grid outages. And in terms of our overarching focus, we have been very focused on developing a comprehensive energy policy here in Connecticut, and the microgrid program has really been part and parcel of that. Our program is really the first in the nation to do a statewide microgrid program, and as I just mentioned, really a critical piece of a larger resiliency strategy. And we recognize that power outages are inevitable, but the program provides enhanced safety and quality of life for residents in an outage situation. The whole program is really part of our Governor Malloy's larger vision for a cheaper, cleaner, and more reliable energy future for Connecticut. And the other thing that we focused on here in Connecticut is really how we can take more of a portfolio view or a portfolio approach that encourages the deployment of distributed generation. So that's just kind of a quick overview, and now I'll turn it over to Veronica to get into some of the details of the microgrid programs more specifically.
Okay, thank you, Tracy, and once again, thank you to CESA for the Slice Award that you presented to us back in November. We do appreciate it. I love talking about the work that we're doing here in Connecticut, especially with the microgrid program, so it's nice to be recognized for that. I'm going to start, from back in the beginning of the program. starting with round one very quickly. This chart on your screen just lists our award winners from round one, and really what I want to show you is how our program projects, span different types of buildings, different types of generation. Our criteria for the first round wasn't, very, very specific and detailed as it was in the second round. So we had projects that weren't actually 24/7 operation. We have progressed in the program beyond that, but so far what I wanted to tell you on these round one award winners is that the Wesleyan project is operational. The Fairfield project is scheduled to come online in the first quarter of next year, followed, I believe, by the University of Hartford project, and then the City of Hartford after that. So each project is in a very different stage of development, but we are excited to see how they're progressing and how we're actually all learning from these projects and what we share with everyone around the country to do microgrid programs in their states as well. So after the first round, which did have its $15 million in funding as well, the second round had another $15 million in funding. We took our lessons learned from the first round and revised our procedures. We made some more detailed, concrete criteria, and I'll get into some of those in a little bit. One of our other partners that we have is our Connecticut Green Bank, and they are working really hard with individuals and developers that are interested in developing microgrids in Connecticut and how they can finance the clean generation through the products that Green Bank has, and also teams of financial people that they have access to. In the round two, we conducted a 4-part microgrid educational webinar series, and we really, from the first round and then getting into our future rounds, we're really about educating the municipalities involved on all aspects of building a microgrid, including the financing, the technical aspects, legal, process, regulatory, and what type of generation would be appropriate for them to use. So in the second round, one of the things that we did, we made it a 2-step process, and the first stage 1 threshold review criteria, all projects had to meet all of the criteria on stage 1 in order to pass to stage 2. So they had to, first of all, complete proposal. In the first round, we got a lot of incomplete proposals, and we couldn't do anything about that. We didn't have a back and forth to make complete proposals. Round 2, we did. So we did require all the information to be there. They needed documentation, including ownership or site control, municipal support, actually support from the facilities that they wanted on the microgrid, the ability, showing some ability to finance, construct, and operate the microgrid, and their financial documents as well. Once again, they needed to serve 2 or more critical facilities that were physically separated. For generation, we wanted them to be supplying generation that was, the generation to supply facilities that were not previously supported by other, like emergency gen. And the new generation in the microgrid was capped at 25% diesel, had to operate for a minimum of 7,000 hours annually, which basically made it 24/7 grid connected, had to be able to follow the load, had to have excess capacity to be able to withstand any changes in the load, and had to have black start capability. As I said, the stage 1 criteria in total was a pass-fail. So we had projects that met all of those requirements, and then we proceeded to the round 2 stage 2 criteria for a more detailed review. This criteria was split amongst 4 different categories: technical, financial, managerial, and operational capability, the social benefits of the project, and the environmental considerations. As Tracy has already said, we wanted to make sure we were getting some benefit for the money that we were spending, so we needed to review the grants on a dollars per kilowatt basis. They did need to be able to show that they can obtain financing and complete the project as they were scheduled, and be able to operate the microgrid going forward. So all the details that they need to provide to us. Under social benefits, one of the things we were looking for was a mixture of public and private facilities, and we did get that in one of the projects that we funded. How they were going to contribute to the social need, the society's need. For example, would they be a staging area for emergency responders? Would they be a shelter? You know, how are their buildings going to serve people? And very important to DEEP is the environmental aspect of it and how they would include clean, renewable, and reliable generation resources into the project. So one of the benefits we had in the second round was the ability to have a back and forth with the project applicants so that we could get some of these details brought to our attention if they weren't already there. We conducted interviews with them. We allowed the applicants to make a presentation to us to better understand their project. And from that, we were then able to select in round two, 2 award winners. So we did only spend $5 million of the $15 million that we had available, but that's not a bad thing. These projects that we did award were very well thought out, and they were much further along in the design and the financing process than the projects were from the first round. So as the program evolves and we all learn more, these projects will be better positioned to actually come to fruition, and that'll be good for everybody. So after we issued these awards, we wanted to hear from people. We were concerned that we had fewer applicants and fewer awardees, and we wanted to kind of know why. And so we conducted an online survey that ran from November 4th to November 20th. We received 51 responses, which we were quite pleased with. You can see the breakdown between state and municipal government, private developers, and others that either didn't say what type of organization they were from or were from a different type of organization altogether. So what we wanted to know from people, information we thought could help us move forward with the program. We first of all wanted to know if they were a participant in round 1 or round 2. Was the information that was provided on our website helpful? Did DEEP respond to questions that appropriately that people asked? List some reasons why people did not participate in the project, in the program. Did they have difficulty working through the criteria and the documents that they had to submit? What were the administrative, financial, and technical steps that DEEP could do going forward to help them better participate in the program and overcome some of the barriers that they might perceive? And any type of programmatic or non-programmatic changes that they thought that DEEP should make. So as I said, we received 51 responses. Some of these were quite detailed. DEEP is in the process of reviewing those responses. We're analyzing them. We're grouping them. And we're going to take those suggestions and integrate them into the future program design. So some of the things that DEEP is already thinking now, based on our analysis so far, is that we are looking to go to a rolling application process in the future instead of a hard stop date for proposals being due. We're going to design the programs that the money will be available, and as completed applications come in, they will get reviewed. We are working with our sister agency, Department of Administrative Services, to develop an approved vendor list, which should then help the municipalities find qualified contractors to help them with their microgrid projects. And we might think about how we want to actually spend our money, how we want to dole out the individual grants. And all of that will be coming down as we get through to the next round of the program. So going forward, we still have money under the legislative authorization that we had, initially $30 million, which got split into $15 million from round 2. We have money from that, an additional $15 million. We expect to launch the next round of the program in early 2014. Please do not ask me a question as to when. We have not gotten that far yet. We are going to continue to refine the procedure. As I said, we're going to look to take enrolling applications. And one of the very important things that came out of the survey is we're going to offer more municipal assistance, starting with meeting with the municipalities individually. We would like to meet with the municipal officials, the actual staff who might be aware of the, the facility's workings and which ones would be best suited for microgrid needs. Staff from DEEP will have a representative from the EDCs because they do need to, of course, interconnect with the distribution system. We'll have representatives from our green bank there as well to start explaining the whole process about how to do the project financing. So we will be available in these additional individual municipal meetings to answer any general questions that the officials have. Overall, we can maybe help them become more aware of what their energy needs are in the town, and specifically then if microgrid can help them. And we can help them, once again, working especially with the municipal staff to identify their critical facilities. Not just anybody in town, any facility can be a critical facility on a microgrid. There are constraints with geographic location type of thing. And once again, how they can finance the microgrid. So these meetings will be, like I said, one-on-one. We will be reaching out to municipalities in general to offer our assistance, but we welcome any direct correspondence from the municipalities if they would like to have us come out and speak with them. And the municipalities and anybody else who would like any information about the program can reach us all the time at deep.energybureau@ct.gov. We welcome your questions. I know in the past there might be people on this webinar who have contacted me directly through email or phone. It is best if we use the deep.energybureau email just to keep everything all neat and tidy. All the information from both the pilot round, the first round, and the second round of the program is on DEEP's website, and that includes both requests for proposals that we've asked, lots of frequently asked questions. You can get a lot of information about what our program does and doesn't do, and those frequently asked questions. If you're interested in what has actually been proposed to date and who the players have been, all the proposals are posted, and all presentations from other webinars we've done, workshops we've done, meet and greet events we call them, anything that any presentation that's been made is also posted on our website. So with that, I can turn it back over to Todd, and we welcome your questions on our program.
Okay, thank you very much. We do have quite a few questions, and we'll get to as many as we can. I want to first say, I apologize for my voice. I have a little bit of a cold, so I hope that this is understandable. I think we'll start with a few questions for Veronica and Tracy from Connecticut, and then we'll do a few for Dana. So starting with Connecticut. Will Connecticut collect and report data about outages and islanding?
Yes, in the project contracts, when they have a contract signed with DEEP, there is an annual reporting requirement, including their runtime, outages that they had, fuel used. There's a number of criteria that they are supposed to report to us on an annual basis.
Okay, and then a couple of questions about details. What percentage of the total project cost does the grant cover?
Our program only covers the design, engineering, and interconnection infrastructure costs. We will cover 100% of that cost up to $3 million per project. We are looking to put forth a change in the legislation for the next session in 2015 that could allow our program to also fund clean and renewable generation and energy storage. So if that legislation is enacted, then we will have to, that'd be part of our rethinking what our individual grant amounts are, because we'll now be able to pay some of the generation. That is not legislation yet. That is just what we would like to do.
Okay, and then a couple of related questions. I'm not sure whether you'll be able to actually address these, but was the entire budget not spent? I guess that's for the second round. And if you don't use all the money, is the money going to be lost to the program, or I guess the alternative is there going to be a follow-on microgrids program that could roll the remaining money into?
So first of all, in round 2, from the projects that were submitted, first they had to pass all of those stage 1 threshold review criteria, and then we had 2 projects that passed that criteria, and we were able to work with those projects to get all the details we needed in the stage 2, such that we were able to fund both of those programs. That was $5 million. If we had had more projects that had passed through phase 1 or stage 1, we would have been happy to use more of the $15 million already. But we are working under the opinion that the rest of that money is still available to us. Of course, in any budget season, it could go, get taken away. But right now we're working under the assumption that we still have that money.
Right, and bond funds are non-lapsing, so we're under, as Veronica's saying, under the assumption that the funding will still be there.
Okay, so a couple of questions now for Dana Levy from NYSERDA. Question, this is actually a two-parter, and I'll go through it in pieces because it's a little complicated. So the first part is, how did New York electric and natural gas rate structures help or hurt CHP?
Sure. So the rate structures in New York have been stable for close to a decade, the way the rates are structured. We have what we call parent tariffs and standby tariffs. There are some situations where a CHP project could be exempted from the standby tariff, and therefore it would stay on the parent tariff. We see a lot of situations where projects actually extract maximum economic value by going onto the standby tariff. So the tariff structure has been in place for a considerable amount of time, and the development community has gotten to understand it and figure out where they can extract maximum value. One thing that helps with CHP in New York State is that, for the most part, the electric prices are set by the marginal generator, which is typically fueled by natural gas. So as natural gas prices go up, electricity prices go up. As natural gas prices go down, electricity prices go down. And so the spark spread, the difference between the price you would pay for gas and the price you would pay for electricity, stays relatively constant regardless of whether gas prices go up or gas prices go down. And that is something that enables folks to make really long-range planning based on current economic situations.
Okay, great. And then the second part of this question is, how does the brand new New York PSC order for Con Ed Brooklyn Queens project advance the market?
Sure. So New York, the tariffs that are in place in New York have been in place for 8-10 years, a stable amount of time. New York is in the process through the revising the energy vision through the REV proceeding, establishing a new mechanism for the way the electric utilities operate, and that will bring with it a new set of tariffs. That process is ongoing and will take some time to unfold. But in the meantime, Con Edison has identified a particular circuit, a particular network area, the Brooklyn Queens network in the Brownsville neighborhood, which is highly stressed, and in the next few years may require a substantial build-out and reinforcement of a substation at significant cost. And the Public Service Commission has authorized Con Edison to seek alternatives that would be lower cost, and those alternatives would be really supply-side, customer-side solutions that would help to lower the demand that customers place on the electric grid. So Con Edison has issued a request for information. They received proposals. They're in the process of selecting winners, and it's possible that some of those projects may receive an incentive from Con Edison to get them to build their projects specifically in the Brooklyn, Queens, Brownsville area, and may also be eligible to get incentives from NYSERDA under the NYSERDA programs.
Great. And one more question for you, Dana. What's the sweet spot for your CHP program? In other words, the size of the average system?
Sure. So CHP systems by size tend to vary based on customer sector. In New York City, there are considerable amounts of high-rise apartment buildings, large multifamily co-ops, condos, apartment buildings with 300, 500, 800 apartment units. We're seeing CHP systems on the size range of 100 kilowatts, 200 kilowatts, 300 kilowatts going into those large apartment buildings. We've seen CHP systems on the size range of 400 kilowatts going into supermarkets. CHP systems on the size range of 500, 600, 700 kilowatts going into hotels. CHP systems that are a megawatt, 2 megawatts, 3 megawatts going into hospitals. Depending on the size of a commercial office building, if it's 20 stories tall, they might put in a 500 kilowatt CHP system. If it's 50 stories tall, they might put in a 6 megawatt CHP system. So there is really quite a broad range. When I think of a sweet spot for these prepackaged modular appliance-like CHP systems, I'm thinking in the size range, certainly 50 kilowatts to 1.3 megawatts that we've started with. But there are prepackaged systems that are larger than that and prepackaged systems that are smaller than that. You can think of a fast casual restaurant, TGI Fridays, Chili's, those sorts of places that serve food on ceramic plates with metal silverware that are constantly doing washing, and they might be well suited for a 5 kilowatt, 10 kilowatt, 15 kilowatt CHP system that is essentially a hot water boiler that makes all of their dishwashing continuous need hot water and makes them electricity as a byproduct.
Okay, great. We have several questions about energy storage for both programs. So let's see. Let's start with Dana. So the question is, have you done or do you know of any studies that quantify the increased efficiency for CHP plus storage versus CHP alone due to operating at optimal loads?
Sure. So storage for CHP could be thermal storage or it could be electric storage. The challenge of trying to match the temporal coincidence of the need for both electric and heat means that storage can actually help play a big value for CHP systems. We've seen a number of CHP systems that have included thermal storage. They may have large hot water tanks or chilled water tanks or even ice storage where they might make ice in the middle of the night and use that to help reduce air conditioning loads during the day. I'm not familiar off the top of my head with studies that have quantified the value of adding storage. There may be some studies out there that others might be familiar with. In my mind, it boils down to a case-by-case analysis. Certainly, thermal storage requires some available footprint space to put a large hot water tank or to put an ice storage system. When it comes to electric storage, the use of batteries, we have not yet seen a lot of integration of batteries with CHP. We do have a project in Syracuse at Syracuse University, the Syracuse University Green Data Center, where they matched up a considerable amount of CHP. I think it was 780 kilowatts of CHP with a sizable amount of batteries so that they could have a very, very reliable electric supply for the data center. There may be particular applications where the CHP system matched up with batteries delivers that exceptional value. In general, in apartment buildings, in nursing homes, in most commercial office buildings, we have not seen the matchup of CHP plus batteries because CHP is dispatchable. You are not at the mercy of whether the wind happens to be blowing at the moment or whether the sun happens to be shining at the moment. You can actually throttle up and throttle down your CHP system to produce the critical amount of electricity that you might need. And therefore, electric storage is not as essential with CHP systems as it might be with other technologies.
Okay, and then going back to Connecticut, the question is, are there any energy storage requirements in the microgrids program? And I'm assuming that this question refers to electric energy storage, since we are talking about electric microgrids and not distributed thermal systems. So any energy storage requirements there?
So we don't have any requirements in the microgrid program. We think energy storage combined with the other types of generation is a great idea for a microgrid project. And the one requirement related to energy storage in round 2, in order to count the renewables as capacity that would be available when we needed it, they had to be paired with energy storage. So you could use renewables for all different types of services within the microgrid, but to count it towards capacity, it had to be partnered with energy storage. But energy storage itself, we welcome the different technologies, and we'd love to see more energy storage come into the microgrids because there's other services that they can offer to support the microgrid.
Okay, and there's a requirement for that, as you said, storage to be paired with intermittent renewables, correct? So is that, is there a requirement that it's paired at a certain percentage of capacity or at 100%? In other words, what's that pairing requirement?
It's looked at on an individual project basis. We did have projects that came in with energy storage in round 2, and we looked at how they calculated their load and how they calculated their capacity from all the different generation sources, including the energy storage. And we leave that to the technical guys, but they come up and tell us whether or not, with the whole package of energy resources and loads, whether or not their generation can meet 120% of their peak load, and then we can move the project forward.
Okay. Well, here's a question for both Connecticut and New York. The questioner says both Connecticut and New York are states with restructured electric utilities. How are the programs working for unregulated utilities in your states? In other words, municipal or co-ops, if not state regulated. How would you see the programs working in states with vertically integrated utilities? Somebody want to dive into that?
So in Connecticut, all municipalities are welcome to participate in our program. Our program is not funded by the regulated utilities. It's funded by state bonds. So even towns that are part of municipal utilities, we welcome them to participate. And in fact, we did have prior participation from those towns.
In New York, the source of funds that we're using for the program come as a surcharge on the bills of the electric ratepayers of the investor-owned utilities, and we have an obligation to return those funds through the program specifically to the eligible customers, those customers that pay into the fund. And therefore, the territories that are not investor-owned utilities, such as the Long Island Power Authority customers and customers of municipal electric utilities, rural electric co-ops, those customers do not participate in the program at the moment. As New York goes through the REV proceeding, it remains to be seen whether the programs are retooled to be universal across the state.
And this is Tracy Babbage. Just to add on one comment.
Yep, go ahead, Tracy.
Just to add one comment to what Veronica said. In Connecticut, we do have municipal electric cooperatives. They have participated in terms of, coming to technical sessions, et cetera. They haven't pursued a microgrid program, but it doesn't mean that they couldn't pursue a microgrid program if they chose to do that. So there isn't a distinction in Connecticut between a regulated and an unregulated utility here. They could participate in Connecticut's program.
Okay, great, thank you. Another question for both states. How much of the equipment is being manufactured in-state? Does in-state manufacturing help with getting legislative buy-in?
So I can start for New York. In-state manufacturing is a wonderful thing if we can get it, but the program is not geared towards boosting in-state manufacturing. NYSERDA has a whole suite of other programs that do that. This particular program, the CHP Acceleration Program, the catalog program, is intended to get customers to comparison shop across the suite of best-in-class products that are available from all across the globe, and to then make the rational choice of which equipment suits their needs best. As it happens, we do have some manufacturers in New York that manufacture some of this equipment, but that is coincidental as opposed to a primary objective of the program.
Okay, anybody?
So in Connecticut, we have a requirement in the program that the applicant be located in the state of Connecticut, so whether it's a municipality or developer that has an office here, but we don't have requirements for the components of the microgrid to come from Connecticut companies, that kind of stuff. We welcome participation from all over. We've had people from all over the country. We've certainly had interest in the program from international companies. So really our requirement for applicants is that they be located here in Connecticut.
Hi, this is Dana. Just to follow up on that, in contrast, in New York, we consider the applicant to be the pre-approved vendor. We've got the 13 pre-approved vendors with their 141 different systems. They are the applicant. NYSERDA actually pays the vendor, and the vendor then provides a pass-through discount to the end-use customer, and the end-use customer is a New York-based facility. It's like buying a car at the car dealership, and there's a factory-authorized rebate from the car maker that gets paid to the car dealership so that the customer can buy the product at a reduced price. That's how we've structured so that NYSERDA maintains a long-term relationship with these 13 specific vendors, as opposed to engaging in new relationships with a building owner that is a one-time only relationship. NYSERDA is establishing a long-term repetitive relationship with these vendors, and that is one of the control mechanisms we use to keep them attentive to the needs of their projects.
Great. Well, we've gone a little over our hour. I think we'll take one more question and then wrap this webinar up. The question is, and you can all weigh in on this one, is there a way to run the program to greatly reduce or eliminate the grant funding while offering low-cost financing instead?
So in Connecticut, our program is technically called the Microgrid Grant and Loan Program. We on the funds that DEEP distributes, we've just leaned towards the grant end of it. We have encouraged matching funds to be used for some of those services as well. And of course, the generation component of it currently is 100% non-grant funded through us. So, however, the loans or additional grants or programs, the project can get funding for that type of thing. As we progress the program and potentially fund more of the generation, the renewable components, the energy storage, like I said, then we might rethink the way we proceed with it. But really, using our green bank partners for the generation components of it, they have various products that they offer incentives for, plus they have the access to the capital providers for the loans for the generation that gets used. So we like the public-private partnership that we've got going on here in Connecticut, so we use some of our grant money, but it does leverage the private industry loans, especially through the green bank.
In New York, our CHP acceleration program, the catalog program, is specifically a market transformation program. What we are trying to accomplish first and foremost is to transform the way customers choose and buy CHP systems. And in the old way, it was like hiring a mechanic to go to the auto parts store and purchase 40,000 different components and assemble a car for you. And now we have customers that are going to the car dealership lot, picking out a car that was built at the factory, putting the key in, and starting the engine and driving away with it. There's 40,000 fewer opportunities for mismatch and component failures. So that is a prime objective. It delivers customer confidence that they can buy a product that comes as an appliance with a bumper-to-bumper warranty. The grants that we're providing at the moment are to help jumpstart this recognition of CHP as an appliance. But as the marketplace begins to recognize and favor CHP as an appliance, the grants can be whittled down, and eventually the marketplace should be able to proceed in the absence of grants from NYSERDA.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for both our attendees and our presenters. And thank you all very much for an excellent webinar. As we said, these webinars are recorded, and you will be able to review this in its entirety as soon as it's posted to our website, which should be within the next day or so. And you can also review other webinars. We have an archive that has several years' worth of webinars, and those are always available. I also want to mention we have some upcoming webinars that you might want to put on your calendar. Samantha, can you give any information on any of the upcoming webinars?
Sure, Todd. We have on January 7th a webinar about energy storage in FERC territories, and then later in January we have 2 other webinars featuring winning programs of the 2014 State Leadership in Clean Energy Awards. We have a program featuring California and Connecticut as well, that's on January 16th, and a program featuring Alaska and Oregon's net zero projects, that's on January 23rd.
Great. So we have a very rich January for webinars coming up. I want to, again, just thank our presenters. Congratulations on your programs. They're 2 excellent programs. And thanks for presenting those programs today. Happy Hanukkah to everybody anybody who may be celebrating that tonight. And I think if there's nothing more, Samantha, we can conclude this broadcast.